Awesome. We're going to be playing Lord of the Rings 5e by Free League. I'll be the game master for the evening, and we've got some cool players. We're about 5-6 sessions into our campaign. You are playing as Gondorians traveling south to the city of Umbar to perhaps negotiate some sort of a treaty. This is before the events of Lord of the Rings. Um, and you're hoping to maybe uh, uh, form an alliance or form some sort of a treaty. And if all else fails, Gondor is preparing a swift surprise offensive to cripple the Corsair Navy should your attempt fail. Yes, the Fellowship of Diplomats. So, last week, or the last couple weeks, you all let's take a look. Let's just chat for a minute here about your trip. You started off in Minas Tirith. You went to Pelargir on the port city of Gondor, and then you traveled the Harad Road, and you made it to Harmenden. Harmenden, you met um, you met several people there. Do you guys recall the name of the lord there in Harmenden?
My notes do.
Um, hold on. It was Sir Grath.
Yeah,
Sire
Sire
Grath.
Grath. Yep, yes, exactly right, Sire Grath. And you were able to chat with him. Obviously, them being in the far south of South Gondor, they're kind of isolated, secluded, and they kind of make their living, uh, hold fast to their own land and survival by playing nice with a wide variety of people, some of which are not nice in return. Um, you end up having to deal with some ruffians there in town. Then you had a more serious chat with Sire Grath. He gave you his blessing. He gave you a banner, a flag of the white albatross. Is that right? Am I right in saying albatross? Not
Yes.
albatross. Yes,
The white
albatross.
egret.
Egret.
The
Thank
white
you.
egret.
Egret.
That you can carry with you and will give you some sort of additional safe passage potential, as you have determined to continue your journey south as opposed to deviating to the west here. You're heading straight south to the Golden City, the city of Abrakan, the city of Harad, the great city, the city of trade. Um, and we finished last session with you all kind of cutting through the hills, kind of side skirting that road, making your way to Abrakan, and you ran into one of these nameless creatures, these nameless things that lurk out in the wilds of Middle Earth. Um, this was the Devourer in the Dark, which was this kind of troll, but much bigger and with more hair and with horns. Yeah.
The nastiest troll imaginable.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I just want to be clear, okay? I want to be clear about two things. This may be metagaming, it may not be. But this is all Garwin's fault. Garwin's fault for one thing, because Garwin did success with Woe in the last encounter with Sire Graft. So that old flag, the green long flag, like Rohan with the white egret flying, the old flag of Harmenden, I feel is a tad cursed. But I'm just saying that. But the other thing is Garwin's the one who went ahead and failed his scouting role and encountered the Devourer in the Dark, and it came running after him. And why Zachariah, Prithiel, and Garwin were all able to start escaping, I was stuck direct melee with the thing, and Crithiel very bravely and in the full spirit of the camaraderie of the fellowship was like, well, I'm going back in and jumping on top of this thing with both my weapons. And it was a fierce battle.
Mm-hmm.
I think but for all the temp hit points that Silmarian doles out as a captain, Crithiel will be like double dead at this point.
Yeah, and that is where we kind of left off, which is a good segue to chatting about the fancy rules, the new rules of 5e in the Middle Earth setting. Because all is not sunshine and rainbows in Middle Earth. You have new rules to deal with, and the biggest part of those new rules are or a big part is when we come to long rests and short rests. Um, Basically, short rests take the amount of time that a long rest did previously. Um, you must sleep for at least 8 hours, during which a character can only perform light activities at most. Um, um, Other than that, long rests exclusively can be taken in sheltered and safe refuges, i.e., not on the road. The safe havens of the company certainly count as sheltered refuges, as well as any city or settlement where the company is welcomed on friendly terms. The lore master's discretion, a deserted but well sheltered place in the wilds could also be suitable for a long rest. Um, so, you guys have just dealt with this creature. You are certainly on the road. Um,
Oh, can I just say, as a player, I don't think we get a long rest again. I mean, we are so far south at this point. We're going to um, Abrakan. You know, we may go to the ruins. We may go to Umbar. Like, I don't see a friendly, happy, peaceful space unless there's a Tom Bombadil of the South. I don't think we're going to get a long rest again.
No.
Sure, there is.
These
I'm
are
sure there
still
is
the
one.
lands of Gondor. Surely there's a friendly inn or establishment that can shelter weary travelers without fearing a knife in the back.
I think we left the realm of Gondor in the broadest interpretation of what once was Gondor. I think we left it when we crossed the last river.
I would
Now,
say I would say that you are certainly in
Not
lands that once upon a time were claimed by Gondor. Um, not currently in Gondorian hands, even by Gondorian political standards. Yeah,
But
but
I'm
you are,
Zach,
yeah. Go ahead.
to be clear, Numenorian blood flows in Umbar and Selentir, but to my understanding, Abrakan does not have
Give
a Numenorian lineage.
That's a great question. How about we get Brian? How about we get your character, the one of the lore masters of the group, who has his book Zechariah, to see what he knows about the men of Harad.
Oh yes. Let's see here. So this would be old lore.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. D20. There we go. So we have that is a 15,
Nice.
and I may be able to. No, yeah, that 15 is about it.
Okay. So with a 15, this is what you know. You know that Abrakan and the lands that you are in now, the land of Harad, was once controlled by Gondor before the kin strife. In fact, at different times in the Second Age and the beginning of the Third Age, like Harad was controlled a couple of different times by Gondor. Um, that is not true now. At one point, Harad was governed and Abrakan was ruled by Gondorians, by Numenorians, in fact. Um, and that was kind of a big deal. In fact, there was a couple of brothers, I believe, right before the kin strife, that ruled in Abrakan and kind of like brought Harad up in power. So there is Gondorian bloodline here, but it is foreign. It is the people of Harad are not Numenorians, are not Gondorians, and if there are people that have that bloodline, it would be probably the higher ranking, and very few of them, very, very few Haradrim are going to have Numenorian blood. And what's going to set them apart from Umbar, at least in your mind, Zachariah, is that while Umbar still often claims its Numenorian heritage and is very interested in that side of it by and large, um, you don't get the sense, you haven't gotten the sense for a long time that the men of Harad, in any way, even their rulers, see themselves as Numenorians. Um, so that would be the strong defining line. This is the first time that you are setting foot into the land, probably for any of you, that has no interest in being recognized as historically part of the wider Gondorian nation.
Fair enough.
And yet, Aragorn and our steward would like us to assert that they totally are part of Gondor, and that they should fall back into the fold without us being able to actually give them anything in return.
I don't agree, Zachariah. I don't agree. Our mission is to create a peace with the humans to the south. We're to broker a treaty of peace,
without giving up anything in terms of land, is what our instructions were.
Well,
and if they consider this Gondorian land, then we can't follow their instructions and actually do anything.
Well, in the spirit of Henry Kissinger, who died this week, we're going to play balance of power politics, and going to see the king who sits upon the golden throne in Abercon is the equivalent of Nixon going to China in the 70s. We are going to broker a deal for peace and prosperity with the Haradim and take that with us to Umbar to strike a grand entente or détente, depending on your positive and negative sensibilities, among the human powers of the world.
The spirit of Henry Kissinger says, it burns, it burns.
Perhaps we can start. Perhaps we can start this process by brokering a deal with some farmers to recuperate in their barn.
Well, let's find out.
You're in bad shape, aren't you, Krithia?
Let's
spinning a hit die is not going to solve your health
problem. I am fine. One of my legs still works.
Well, listen, we need to finish these rolls here. So you're not out of the woods yet. You're not in Abercon yet, and indeed there may be
in the woods that is in the trouble.
That's right. So what I need to hear from you is we've already set the journey path. You got 2 more hexes. You cannot not make it to Abercon on this next journey. So all we're finding out is what is the last little leg of this travel as you get near Abercon. What does that look like? Can you get can you find a safe spot to rest? We need to figure that out.
So going back to, just because I'm hesitant to undertake a perilous, potentially, journey with 2 hit points, is short rest viable? Or is short something we need at safe haven?
I would feel, given that we killed that troll, that devourer in the dark, that we might be able to set up camp under this white tree.
Yep.
And sleep the night and spend a hit dice to at least heal somewhat.
I'll tell you what. I think that
tree doesn't exist, though, right?
That's right. It's not really a white tree. It's a
just making sure.
It's a dead tree, a massive dead tree with bones strapped to it.
But I would imagine that, given everyone in this area stays far clear of this space, because anyone who's here knows this is kind of a haunted space.
Mm-hmm.
it's like staying in the safest place in the wilderness.
Okay, so let's do
Yes.
this. I like your confidence, Ulysses. Could you roll me 2d20 rolls, please, to just see if your confidence holds true? This is seeing if there's an event, and I'm giving you advantage on this roll to make sure that you have every chance of this working out exactly how you described it.
Is this a flat roll or
Just
is
a
it
flat
Is it
roll.
modified?
Flat roll, yeah.
Okay.
Iron
Okay.
lower.
Flat roll. Here we go. Advantage. Here we go.
Okay.
15.
15, great. Yes, so absolutely. The with a 15, you are able to take your rest, um, um, and the additional benefit as you sleep here is that in the morning you guys can spend some hit dice if you want to recharge some hit points. I really like this mechanic, by the way, that short rest. The short rest are 8 hours, and then lets you spend hit dice. It makes those hit dice much more meaningful. But when you get up in the morning and you feel rejuvenated and your eyes are clearer, you are able to deduce something of a shortcut. So you already have a short journey ahead of you this next phase, but you kind of come to the top of a rise and you see a small narrow valley, and at the tip of that valley you could just see the gleaming light coming from the buildings of Abrakan. So you don't have to take the road. You don't have to travel through any more mountains. You could just follow this valley and get to your destination, which is going to be nice for you.
Okay. How many hit dice can we spend? Is there a limit?
No. You can spend as many hit
We
dice
each
as you
have
want.
4.
Yep.
I'm going to roll 2.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. 21 points for restoration.
Nice.
Okay. I rolled
the
a
other-
1 on my first.
You got to roll another hit die there.
That's right. We gotta get some more there, Andrew.
I am back to full.
Just roll all 4 of your dice.
Yeah, I that's the plan, really. Like,
Awesome. So,
All right.
Ulysses rolls
Wow, that
rolls
was
2 of his dice
terrible.
and gets 21. Andrew rolls all 4 of his dice and gets 24. So
24, and that's with 12 from pawn.
yes. Ugh, brutal.
That's unfortunately how hit dice work.
Yes, can we
By the
redo
way,
that?
just of note, we got we had a wonderful treasure trove with this Devourer in the Dark. I picked up a keen great spear, an elven keen great spear, that as I study it in the morning light, I realize its name is Angagalar, and that means iron brilliance or iron glory in Elven.
Nice.
Angalar.
Nice. Isn't there another spear of renown that has a similar
Yes.
similar name? Yeah.
Yes. It's not the same name, but
yeah.
I went into my handy Cimmerillion appendices.
Nice.
Like, oh, that's a cool name for a spear, especially one that's keen.
That's right.
Especially one that should put fear into the hearts of evil.
That's right.
And remind me, at the end of last session, did we all pick up weapons, or was it just one weapon total?
You got that
Is it the book?
That staff, Brian.
That's right. Yes, I got a staff
that gives you a plus to your defense, right?
Okay, yeah, I erased my old defense. Yeah.
Yep.
So yes,
Yep.
I erased that. It's one of those things where eventually I'll get to that point. If the campaign were to go on another 25 sessions, then I'd go, why do I have one more to my AC? Why do I have this?
Yes.
What's going on with that? But as it is, you just go, hey, it's not that long of a campaign. Erase the 14, turn into a 15, and
right.
never think of it again, which is exactly what I did, which is why I'd ask. Okay, yes, you are correct. Yeah, the staff. Handy.
Brian, do you need to take any healing for yourself, or are you feeling pretty good?
No, I did not get hit. I don't remember exactly what I did, but I kind of tried to draw everybody and run it. And I don't remember, but yeah, I did. I did not have them attack me directly, and or no, they did swing once and they missed.
Yeah.
So I don't need any healing. I do have something called Hands of a Healer, which
Mhm.
is choose any number of friendly allies who spent one or more hit dice at the end of the short rest, up to at the end of the short rest, up to 2x my proficiency bonus. Each of these creatures regains an extra 1d6 hit points for each hit die spent. I don't have the exact text, but I'm trying to remember if that is an ability. You know, sometime in combat, I go, "Hey, you get those." Anybody who remembers that they used hit dice, or whether that's more like Song of Rest.
That's
At the
more
very
like-
end, hey,
Yeah, Song of Rest feeling. So
But it's
Okay, gotcha.
you say
So-
it's 1d6 for every hit die we spent.
yes,
yes.
You should roll. You should roll 3, and see if you actually spent your 4th hit dice.
he's gonna need to
Nah.
spit his 4th hit
Yeah.
die. Hey, there
Fine.
you go. Those are some nice rolls. So 16 more health off of that. So excellent.
And I put the at the end of a short rest up to 2 times your proficiency bonus. So I'm guessing that I can do that. Yeah, my proficiency bonus is 2. I can do that up to 4 times, or
no, you can choose a number of creatures up to twice your
a
proficiency
number of
bonus.
creatures up to. Yes, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I choose 2 of you, and and if Zach happens to need help as well,
That's
then
right.
we'll let him know when he gets back from Middle Earth.
That's right.
So yeah, sounds good. So yeah, you get an extra d6 for each hit die you spend.
Nice.
Okay, so that gets me back to full, and because I rested under the stars and safety, I get a 2 temporary hit points as well.
Ooh, nice. Speaking of which, yeah, go for it.
I would just, as we embark on the final push to Abercon, I would like to use my Sky Watcher ability to read the sky and the wind.
Yeah.
Or, you know how like today when I woke up in Connecticut, the sky was very pink, and Kate said to me, "Oh, Mrs. Claus is baking cookies," right? So, in similar auspices, as we wake up, what does the sky foretell for us?
Yeah, I think, I mean, really fast answer for you. Very clearly, when the sun crests over the horizon in the morning, like it is unfettered by cloud, by anything other than its brilliance. And when you kind of start to head down into that valley, like the sun, let's see, so this valley would be, the sun kind of cresting over one side of the valley, and this sun immediately starts to bake this area in its heat. And it's a heat that you do not know in Gondor, right? Like this is the heat of the Southern Kingdoms, and it is intimidating. And you're not marching into the sun, right? You're heading south, but you can't help but feel as you move down this large yellow eye burning into you as you move, and living under the shadow of Gondor, or of Mordor, and Great Eye there. Um, I think there is a similar weight that comes upon you now with the sun. This thing that you've seen in the sky forever now has almost a maleficent bearing, gleam to it.
As Crithiel rides next to me, I turn to her and I say, "Crithiel, we are in deeper than the deepest part we've been in. This is an oppressive eye of a sun. We need to be as resolved as we can be for this push."
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna roll a d6. Go ahead. Sorry.
It does seem though the even though the reach of shadow has grown in our borders, it would seem that perhaps it has been growing here for an even longer time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what are we rolling?
So I am going to check on a thingy-majig here, and I'm going to find out which one of you is going to make the last test getting it as you come close to Abercon. Oh, geez. Awesome. Cool. A 1, huh?
A 1. That's not a good roll in this game. Dune, we be rocking it.
That's right. That's right. Brian,
Yes.
you are the lookout typically, right? Or no, you play as the hunter.
I tend to be the hunter as long as we have a lot of food. At the moment that we run short on food, I will explain my ineptitude, come clean, and go ahead and let them know that I can pull the second shift as lookout or something along those lines. I'm very bad at things.
Yeah, no. Our watchman, I think, is away today. But speaking of second shift, Crithael is able to do.
That's right.
Because the warden, she's able to do 2 different tasks, so she'll probably take on whatever was missing.
Awesome. So let's have you be the lookout here. I need you to make me a DC 15 perception check here.
Alrighty. Does this have to? Well, I guess we don't know necessarily what it has to do with.
Yeah,
so
no idea.
You know what? I'm gonna roll with advantage, and we'll see whether I'll tell you in what circumstances I would have advantage.
Okay.
Sorry, my.
Okay.
It would be on perception checks to find or track my favorite foes, which are evil men. So if the presence of evil men is involved in this, the advantage roll would help. Otherwise, it would be the standard roll.
Okay.
And you don't have to tell me. You can, you can respond as appropriate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Geez. Well, that's interesting. It doesn't I guess it. No. Not heavily. So I'm gonna need you to make a dexterity saving throw. This is before you roll, I'll tell you what's going on here, and that will keep you out of the dark. Get you out of the dark. So with that 1, the potential journey event that was rolled was a terrible misfortune.
Great.
That terrible misfortune befalls the lookout. Now, if you fail, the target must make a dexterity saving throw, or bad things happen.
So hang on, there is one other thing, and sorry, I'm just remembering all my different things.
All good.
We have discussed this previously,
mm-hmm.
in that that I get a second warded land.
Yes.
And did we consider that essentially we would be in it for this or not? I don't remember what.
I think we said we were going to just do Harad because it made sense for where you currently are.
Okay.
Yeah.
In that case, my 13 is actually a 15.
Okay, a 15. Wow. Okay, well that's very fortunate for you.
Because I get to add double my proficiency bonus, which is cool.
So go ahead still and make that dexterity saving throw, though. It's good to know that you succeeded, however.
I have confidence in Crithael's ability.
Nice.
I have confidence in his HP pool because I gave him a crit heal.
That's right.
for a crit heal.
So
It is
I've just been wanting to
actually
say that for a while.
It's not actually a 20. It looks like I had some weird modifier in there, but it's a high roll anyway.
okay, great. As long as it's above a 15, looks like it is.
It's above.
Okay, so what's gonna happen?
It's exactly 15.
You're in this valley, right? And you're moving through, and as you look and see as you're coming down off this hill, you begin to see the gleam of Abrakan down below you, and it is, as you know, you guys are riding down on your horses, and you at some point hear something snap, or the crack like a thunder or something above you, and you look up just in time to see um, several boulders kind of giving way off the side of the cliff there, and just bouncing down. Um, a lot of you managed to like spur your horses and try to stay clear. However, one of these massive rock chunks hits you, Crithale,
Right.
kind of bouncing off of your armor, and on a failed dexterity save, which you did not fail, the target is reduced to 0 hit points. On a successful save, the target loses half of their maximum hit points, rounded down.
Great.
So well done. With that roll that mattered there.
Better than you were last night, eh?
That's right. Yeah, there's this huge purple bruise probably starting to form underneath your.
The horse is okay
Carb.
though.
Horse is okay. Yeah, horse is okay. Just happened. You avoided most of this little landslide here, but you caught one of the boulders bouncing.
I mean, that's a good 18 plus points of hit point damage, though.
Yeah, it's not a fun one. And it is with that injury, unfortunately, that you are going to descend the rest of the way out of the valley and into the wider city of Abrakan. So let me share my screen with you, fine folk.
It's fine. I'll just let Zechariah take a few hits next time.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So I think that worked there. Yep, it did. Cool. Awesome. Fantastic. So let's show you guys what you're looking at here.
When's the last time anyone from Gondor was here?
Oh gosh,
There's got to be trade. I mean, there's
a few generations ago. Yeah.
No.
No,
Yeah, I mean, there's some amount of trade. You're probably right, Brian. That there's a minor amount of trade, but it's typically done through intermediaries, right? So merchants or like the Siregrath and Harbindon, right? Like typically it's not Haradrim making their way to Gondor to Minas Tirith. There is the go-between people of South Gondor and the like that are often doing that. This is what we're seeing when we get to Harad proper, the Golden City.
I would have presumed
how
no
did
one
we-
comes above Peligir.
Yeah. No.
How did we get these assurances of our safety if there's not many people going back and forth on these roads?
No,
I mean,
those assurances
I
of
presume they
safety
sailed.
Yep.
They were in the east. They were in the west. We had assurances of safety to Umbar if we went that way. We're traversing lands that guarantee of safety is not necessarily in effect.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
You have no.
We decided
the
to go in
east
random directions.
That's right. Abrakan has no guarantees.
Okay, so people would have walked more often in along the western area. So people would have, well, I guess they would have taken through the harbor. So everybody just goes by sea if they want to go from Gondor to Umbar.
Pretty much that's the destination from Gondor to Umbar. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
It's important if the goal is to whether it's to remind them of their heritage and their oaths, or to tell them we'll stay out of their business and nobody's ever been in their business. It's important to know how connected these are on a economic and social level. And the answer seems to be right now, no.
Right. So you can imagine that if you were in Minas Tirith at the moment, that there might be some smattering of vendors who offer, textiles and interesting artifacts from um, from the far south, from Harad. And they would tell you of their harrowing journeys to get down into Abrakan and the deeper parts of Harad to barter and then to come back. Or they would talk to you of meeting in Harmond and negotiating in kind of that quasi-neutral zone with merchants from Harad. There is certainly not like a big caravan coming up or going down on a regular. So that's.
It just seems like, it seems like if we're, even though it's only 4 days journey, if you were to Hungarians promising that they will have great relations with the Chinese while Genghis Khan is in the middle of things. It's just, okay, what do the Chinese care about the Hungarians, and what do the Hungarians care about the Chinese, sort of thing, if we're, we won't invade you. It just seems so removed at that point, if nobody comes through the interior, which is fine. Just informs how do things.
How does this city, Abrakan, compare size-wise and opulence-wise to Minas Tirith?
It's opulent. So size-wise, probably it's a little bit bigger, because keep in mind that Minas Tirith is more of a stronghold than a true city, up until recently, right? You're really talking about Osgiliath as being a major city there. So when you think about Abrakan, it's probably sprawling in the same way that Osgiliath is sprawling, but it's not as iconic a visual spectacle, right? It's a trade city, so it has a lot of design and intent for vendors and for merchants and for markets and things like that. Whereas Minas Tirith is a stronghold with high walls and higher watchtowers. But that said, the thing that you will notice as soon as you catch sight of it is that something that this city has evidently in plenty that is way less prevalent in Osgiliath or Minas Tirith is gold. And there is gold domed and gold capped buildings everywhere. And as you get closer, you can see that the gates of the city are like inlaid with gold. As you approach even closer, you can see that the men, let me give you a soldier here. There's obviously like different ranks and different types of individuals that are inhabiting the space around the Southern Road, but the guards who are at stations upon the walls and at the gates are all of them have armor that is inlaid with some fine amounts of gold as well. This is a city that is wealthy at a level that Minas Tirith is definitely not at this point in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you?
Would that be in terms of other cities in Middle Earth? It's not like there's tons of cities that are known for being wealthy elsewhere at this point in time, right? We're talking close to wealthiest if they've got that, right?
Yeah, probably like some of the dwarven cities, like Erebor, would be like of that wealth. Obviously, the elves show it differently, but as far as the cities of men, you haven't been to Umbar yet, but you would. This is definitely like it. It has undercurrents of probably what Osgiliath felt like at a different time. Um, but this city looks far less touched by war. There's very little visual of devastation here.
Now, Zachariah, in our journey, shared with Crithiel and Silmarian kind of the history of this land and the history of this city and the fact that it has Numenorian history and roots and what have you. But when we look at the architecture of the city, does the architecture strike us as Gondorian, Numenorian, or does it strike us as a completely different independent style?
You can see that there are certainly remnants and memories of Gondor here, of Numenor, but that has been largely subsumed or overwhelmed by architect that is of a foreign design. This is not a familiar city.
Okay. You also asked how we're approaching.
That's right.
Well, I will tell you this. I think at this point, Silmarian is of such a demeanor and a bent that she is uh, flying a banner of Gondor uh, from her standard. I'm not flying the flag of Harmindon, as nice as Sir Graft was. She is here on a diplomatic ambassadorial mission for Gondor.
Mm. Well, in that case, if you're flying the flag of Gondor, the white trees
Dexterity
unfurled.
save.
Yeah. By the time you get to about where this image is, to where you can see the gate, you hear the bellow of horns from watchtowers across the city, and then you hear the rumble, and you hear the groan as a gate somewhere in the city is swung open, and then you would witness a vast shape lumbering out from the side, something that looks a lot like this.
Nice.
Yeah, that's none of you would have seen Mumakil before, but certainly you would have heard of them. Um, and you will see kind of two of them start to lumber out, one from either angle of the city, and they are moving to kind of. They're not hurried, but even though these giant creatures are not hurried, their strides are quickly covering the distance as they move to intercept you before you reach the gate. And you can see on the saddles, on the accoutrement that are mounted on top of these creatures, there are numerous Haradrim men. There's the red flags with the serpents of Harad flying on these creatures, and you can see behind them, moving at a more like quick pace, you can see what you would guess is to be several dozen armed Haradrim warriors kind of moving to also intercept you.
Okay, well, I mean, we're outnumbered, but it's okay. We're being diplomatic.
Yep.
We should halt and just wait as emissaries would do so.
Mm-hmm.
When they come within earshot, Silmarian will call out, Haradrim, greetings. We come as ambassadors of Gondor to meet with and entreat with your high king who sits upon the golden throne.
As you say that, the two mummics kind of coalesce or collide in front of you, both of them kind of barring the way forward. They're probably 100 yards away as you call out, and behind them you can see men starting to fill in the space between you and the gate. One of the um, one of the mummics, you can see a rope kind of uh, drop over the side of it to the ground, to the earth, and then you can see um, what looks to be a woman um, uh, swing over the side, and she descends this rope, just confident, like her feet locking into it, and kind of controlling her descent, but a rapid drop to the ground. She alights on the ground, kind of between these two hulking beasts. The rope returns back up into the mummic. You can see up there now that there are numerous men with bows and spears up there, um, prepared for battle. This woman, though, will uh, uh, take a look around, kind of like looks like she's like surveying and seeing that there's only four of you, um, and seeing your banner, seeing your horses, seeing your presentation in general, and then she will start to walk forward. And as she walks forward, uh, she'll walk forward 10, 15 paces, and then the mummics will step one pace to kind of keep themselves right behind her. She's going to close to about two-thirds of that distance, to about 30, 30 paces away, and you'll get a good glimpse of her. She looks like, pull this up here. This. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I could click on my screen. I'm looking at your screen.
That's
Why
fine.
am I
No,
looking at
that's fine. That's great.
Like, look at my screen. I can blow it up on my screen. There we go. Oh, she's ugly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as she approaches, Solmarian will, in a very easily seen demonstrative way, take the spear that I have and pointing it and with his shaft downward, put it into the ground on one side of my horse and hop off the other side with no weapon drawn.
Mm-hmm.
And I say, "Greetings, emissary of the king who sits upon the golden throne. I am Silmarion, Thane of Belfalis, representative of the kings of Gondor."
You can't. Go ahead, Andrew.
Just as Silmarion hops off her horse and sort of strides forward, Crithael will also hop down, and Crithael will mimic what the elephant is doing. As Silmarion advances, Crithael will advance several steps behind, kind of to keep pace, kind of matching the procession from the other side.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Zechariah at this point is going to, hop off the horse as well, and just kind of walk up to her. And I think he's gonna just say something. And if this leads to a check, I would go for my riddle skill, and I just say something to the effect of, "Could you imagine?" And basically, obviously, he's not the most. He's a little bit more cowardly and definitely not a fighter. But he would basically say, "Can you imagine a scenario of any of the hundreds of ways that this could go, in which the four of us are sent in any way to harm you? Is there any scenario in which that would be the case? And how many scenarios would we be your guests in which a kinder reception might be in order?" And I just kind of, like, confident in the logic of overconfident in the logic of what I've just said, I just kind of walk forward past Ulysses and just kind of wave and try and shake hands, bow, just like, why are we even doing this show? Come on, sort of thing. And that's kind of where that's the approach that I take.
Yeah. As you move forward, Zechariah, you say your statement. Obviously, Crathale and Samarian also speaking or not speaking in turn. But as you kind of walk past Samarian, um, as you get within a couple strides of this woman, she you can't see her eyes. She's kind of got like a veil down in front of them, and all of her motions are almost like bird-like. Like when she moves her head, it's like very sharp, like glances, very sharp turns of the head. You get this like almost like this very much like a bird-like idea from her, and as when you get within a couple spaces, you see her like take like two quick steps backwards, like keeping a certain amount of distance from you, and uh, uh, as she takes like two steps backwards, her self is just maybe just in front of the front feet, front splayed toes of the mummox. And as she steps back, she says, um, "Northman," and she kind of like uh, does her like bird look again, and she says, "You reek of sweat. Your horses reek of fear." She says, "But," she points at you, Zechariah. She says, "You at least are no warrior."
Oh yeah, I not at all. Not that. Yeah, that's how diplomacy works. If we sent like, and I'm just gonna again, I'm not gonna be as glib as I just came off there. I'd say if we were to entreat with you and be diplomatic, and we sent a legion of 25 of us,
In
then we would
intrigue.
have 25 dead bodies. Instead, we have 4, and we have the best of intentions, and you can tell because we have very hungry horses, we have very thirsty bodies, and I'm the best smelling of the lot. And I just wave to my crew behind the wave to the crew again, making a joke there, and just letting her know. Obviously, we're not warriors here. What are you? Well, let us talk to you.
She says, in entreat in Gondor, entreating with the golden throne. Gondor must be desperate indeed. Um, she kind of like she takes a couple steps forward now, and she starts to like look around you, Brian, Zechariah, and you could see like she circles you a little bit, like not close, but just like getting sizing you up, comparing you. She kind of evaluates you there, and then you see her kind of like turn and look at your 3 companions and kind of gives them all a side arm or a side glance, and she's got this golden ring in her hands, and as she moves, she kind of works her hands around it, like working across the perimeter of this ring. Um, and you could see if it might be, she might just be fidgeting, but there's a sense that, um, that that this item might serve some other purpose as well. Um, but as she looks around, she seems to finally become somewhat satisfied, and she nods as she says, leave your leave your flag here, and your horses, leave them at the gate. You may keep your arms and armor. And then she says, lead your horses, walk close, and then she will turn around, um, as if assuming that you are going to follow her.
I I don't want to take the to presume to speak for everyone, but Ulysses, since you're also speaking here, I am inclined to go ahead and push back there and say, yes, of course we'll walk the horses and leave the horses and come with you. But basically, I'm inclined to say and glance at you and see if you agree. It's quite unlike, as a matter of diplomacy, we would not assume to ride under our banner as if to war, but we'd also not care to leave it. May we fold it and bring it with us as a representative of our heritage, of our and of our masters.
She turns back around, looks at you. She says, the pale tree has not flown over this city in generations, and it will not fly today nor tomorrow. You
But
may fold
within
it.
your border.
You may fold it, put it in whatever box for safekeeping, but then you must hand it over to me.
What shall I call you? Hero Adar.
She kind of steps back as she says, she kind of shakes her head. She says, my our ways are different than yours in Gondor, my friend. My name does not matter here. What you must understand, and all that you must know, is that I speak for the king, and I will take you to him.
And I speak for my king, and we would never ask you to debase yourself of any of your regalia. If you feel some oppression from the white tree, my apologies. That is of yesterday, long ago, not of today. I'm happy to take down the banner in your city, but it is the vestige of my ambassadorship to visit you and your king on state business. It is the law of hospitality among humans to respect those ways.
You can see she starts to at the last statement. She starts to bark out this cackle of a laugh. She says, "Gondor, speaking of hospitality, you may keep your flag. Keep it folded. Keep it out of sight. If it is displayed, it is your life. If it is displayed within the Golden City, it is your life that is forfeit."
Okay. Yeah, I was not going to give that. I don't know if you guys know anything about Roman legions and their symbols and their banners, but are you guys familiar with any of the history there?
Tell me.
If they were to, like, in certain battles that were mythic in Roman times, there were not that many Roman defeats, but there were a few serious defeats, and when they fell, they would take the eagle standard and they would march on, like, the whole army would be killed, and they would raise another army 15 years later so that they could march on that city, so that they could recover the banners. Literally, that would be what they were going for. It wasn't that it was militarily important. It was that they wanted to recover those. They would trade hundreds of lives or prisoners to redeem a single banner, to get these the eagles that would, a Roman banner would have the banner going down and then an eagle standard above it. To get one of these standards back, they would trade anything. So the idea of handing it to someone would be absolutely out of the question. Like,
Mhm.
walk away rather than do it. Yeah, sorry to have taken your time. Goodbye. So yeah, that was not happening. If she
Yeah.
said no, then I was inclined to go. All right, well, on to Umbar, I guess. Uh,
I like that
that
history.
was beyond the pale.
I like it. Well, Samarian will fold the banner and put it in her innermost pouch.
Awesome. Unless any of you have misgivings or reservations on this, I will assume that you on horse take your horses by the reins, and you begin to lead them behind her towards the city.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
the As you fall in behind this woman, um, the mummics, once you kind of get in between them, they will turn, and you'll feel the rumble as their enormous body kind of shifts, and then these two massive mummics will move alongside you as well, and your horses just are, even though they are, you know, mounts of Minas Tirith and bred for war. Like this is at the limits of what they can handle. And if you were not having a tight grip on their reins, and if you were not leading them, they would certainly turn and bolt. Um, um, as it is, you have a tight grip on their lead, and you are marched toward this phalanx of Haradrim soldiers that are in front of the gate. Once the woman um, impacts that phalanx, they kind of turn, create an opening, and then fall in around you. So you are now in this sea of gold and brown and red as you are escorted. The gates swing open, very similar and feel to what you remember from the gates of Minas Tirith, though perhaps not as ancient. But as the gates swing open, the mummics just kind of stand there on either side. They do not enter the city, and the Haradrim warrior band kind of escorts you through the city hall, city thoroughfare. Let me hit a button here. There we go. Um, Once you get into the city, it lives up to its name. There is, you can't see a lot, and this is probably by design, you would expect. But there's so many Haradrim all around you. But what you can take glimpses of is a city um, filled with vendors and stalls and people everywhere. The likes of which, Gondorian cities in this day and age are often feel empty because many homes, many, whole lineages are gone, and those homes sit vacant. Here, the opposite feels the case, where there is enough people to fill every house in the city, plus several times over. Um, there is a bustle, but within this bustle of bodies and people and sails and criers and beasts of burden and birds, everyone makes way for the soldiers in gold, and you are like carried as though with this river through the city streets, um, and you are led to what can only be described as a palace. Um, this palace is uh, much like you see in these images here. You know, it's domed, it's gold, it's got sandstone construct. Other than that, it's got these big red curtains that kind of spill down the fronts of it, and again you could see the golden serpent kind of pressed into that fabric, embroidered into that fabric. Um, this is a city, now that you're inside it and that you're seeing it up close, that is almost like emphatically, loudly proclaiming its individuality. if you think about Rohan, right? If you think about Edoras, the city of Edoras, not a huge city, but it's the biggest city in Rohan, and what they do to display their nationality is the flags are near the king, near the house of the king, and they're these long narrow flags. Here, each one of these bolts of fabric that hangs down the side, you could walk up and put your hands out side to side, and fingertip to fingertip could not touch the edges of this fabric, right? So it is an immense display that they are their own people, very clearly. Um, and
And these are banners hanging from the walls
just kind of
of the.
like yes, hanging down
Okay.
the walls of the palace. And you've seen other banners as you've walked in here, but certainly these at the palace are the most resplendent. Um, when you get to the palace itself, again, doors are opened for you, and the woman steps inside. Most of the soldiers remain outside, but there will be about a dozen that enter the space with you. They march down a hallway that is inlaid with rock that you would guess is not from this place. You could see quartz kind of scattered within, onyx scattered within, different mosaic patterns. There, every gap between each stone is filled with an inlay of gold. Um, and as you make your way up, you finally see that you are being led to what can only be the Golden Throne. And the only person that could be sitting upon this Golden Throne is, of course, uh, the Golden King of Harad. This throne, if you think about Minas Tirith, this is extremely similar to the throne room that you would expect there, as if it was designed to be of equal weight, to be a peer of a throne room to what you see at Minas Tirith. And at the top of this throne, you see someone who looks like this.
Cool.
So, obviously a mask, not a face proper, but this king is sitting upon the throne, luxurious robes of gold and red and purples, and filling his entire face is this chiseled golden mask. Um, the woman, who is, you would assume, some sort of visor or counselor, ascends the steps and stands beside him, kind of kneeling down, and she whispers into his ear, and then she turns back and kind of faces you. At which point she says, "Children of the tree, this is our golden king, the Lord of Umbar, the Lord of Harad, the Lord of the lands to the south, the lands to the north, and soon all of Middle Earth." Um, and at that, you see like all of the soldiers around you kind of kneel, and then for a moment, and then they stand back up, and kind of all eyes are on you in this moment.
Can we just recap that? Because as Andrew's eyes indicated, that was a lot to hear. Did she just say, Lord of Umbar?
She said, Lord of Harad, Lord of Umbar, Lord of the lands, Lord of the Southlands, Lords of the lands to the north, and soon Lord of all Middle Earth. Yes.
Now, I'm not the lore master of our group, but last time I checked, Umbar is not under the jurisdiction of the Golden King.
You would say that that is inaccurate. Yeah.
Okay. Right. And then she added that pretension that soon to be the Lord of all Middle Earth.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so tempting to say, may we treat with you on behalf of the Steward of Gondor, representative of the King of Gondor, the King of the Shire, the King of Rohan, and the Dark Lord upon his throne.
So, okay, all right. This definitely presents a. All right, can I do something? All right, Zach. I've been thinking a lot about this, not just in the context of this game, but in terms of the rule set for 5e related games. Can I roll an insight check to help guide Silmarian in her persuasion check? Meaning, can I try to suss out, based on what we've seen, the gesture, the cadence, the tone, the words spoken just now, what exactly would make the Golden King responsive to our entreaty?
Yeah, you're welcome to gain some sort of insight there. You can make an insight check, and while you're doing that, what is Crithale? She's a more reserved character in this sort of a scenario, but what is Crithale's mindset in these moments?
Well, Crithale is entirely sort of behind. She entirely trusts that Silmarian will, steer the conversation in the right direction, and not entirely trusts that Crithale, will be able to restrain herself from murdering Zechariah on the spot if he speaks again. So
Zechariah cut through the nonsense to get you here in a hustle. So
yeah. Again, but in terms of her own, given the tone of, and soon, the conquerors of you all, she's essentially looking around and evaluating if people attempt to kill us now, how do we prevent ourselves from dying instantly and potentially run away from here? So her mind is good. She's like, you know what? So Marion knows what to say, and I don't need to worry about that part. I need to worry if they move to take us. How do I get us out of it?
Okay, good to know. Yes, it's going to be a difficult endeavor for you to get out
Yeah.
of here at the moment. Yeah, there's a dozen cards, which you're pretty tough. You could probably take a couple of these fellows, you think, but maybe not a dozen. Probably at least somebody wouldn't make it out of this room.
And it would probably be something along the lines of, like, can I pull down some giant banner to create chaos or start a fire, or like it would be something like that. It's like, clearly we cannot fight our way out of this, but like, if I need to, can I just create chaos so we can run away?
Sure. Okay, great. Zachariah, Ulysses, go ahead and make your insight check. And Zachariah, while he's making that, same thing for you. Like, what is Zachariah's headspace now that you've been granted this audience that you kind of assume?
I'm doing the same thing as always, which is trying to figure out what these people want, what we can provide, where our abilities match up with their desires or needs. At present, they're shows of wealth and military, even though they don't have they've got so much military, and yet they're not using it actively. Nobody's attacking them. They have all this wealth. They're able to trade, even though the roads are unsafe to a lot of people trading. It seems to me that they don't have a lot of needs other than that they like wealth and they like trading, and we have the roads to Middle Earth. We have people and goods and demand, and trade seems to be the one lever that we can pull, is what he's thinking. And that obviously we're not going to enforce our claims and make, oh well, you should really bow down to Gondor. I don't think we can get anything out of that. I don't think we need their military might unless we could afford it,
Right.
which I don't think we could. So, and their military isn't as, they might be formidable. They've got Oliphants, but they don't have people who have seen a lot of combat. So I feel like trade is the only thing that we need from them, trade and friendliness. So if we can get by with a let bygones be bygones and even a mild apology and a offer of sovereignty, yes, offer of official sovereignty and recognition, then in exchange for trade and peace and their peacekeeping in this area against threats from abroad, from Sauron, etc., then I feel like that's the best we can get out of these guys. I don't think they're gonna go against Umbar because Umbar is their only port. They've got all this wealth, they've got all this trade, and Umbar is the place where it has to go through. So I don't think they're gonna. We can't play them off against Umbar. First, I don't think so. Yeah, I think really just trade is all we've got. That's my take. So that's what Zechariah is doing, is thinking all this stuff through. And Zechariah, as we know, is completely willing to wheel and deal and give up things that Gondor would not give up in order to get the things that Gondor actually needs.
Perfect.
And is young and impetuous enough to think that he knows what is best in that situation, and I think he's got the their best needs at heart.
Awesome. Yeah. So as Zechariah is kind of doing his observations and calculations and figuring out what goes where, and Crethail's looking for doing her own observations and calculations. So Marian, you are kind of like, your insight is met with your dumbfoundedness at the audacity of the statement that was just made to you, and like understanding these people, you realize is going to, you need to, like, you have to chew on that statement for a few moments before you can process anything more than it, right?
Yep.
So I
I
don't
actually,
think
I feel she would find everything here inscrutable. I think that this is the most alien place she's been.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, in the same way that one can't see the face of the Golden King behind the mask, there's a impenetrability to the mores, to gestures, the protocols that she's used to.
Yep.
However, that does not why she may recognize a futility of insight and presumption, and she is a bit flabbergasted by the audacity of that proclamation. She will say, "Great King of," she will say, I'm sorry, I just want to make sure I say this the right way.
That's all good.
Great King of Harad, great King who sits upon the golden throne, great King who rules over this majestic, beautiful, glorious city and lands beyond. I present you with a gift from Gondor, if I may. And I pull out of my bag a bottle of wine. This wine comes from the vineyards of the Anduin. This wine is aged and it represents the husbandry of our people, and it is a gift from one refined monarchy to another refined monarchy. And it is emblematic of the trade we wish to introduce between our peoples. In fact, We come here as ambassadors to strike an agreement with you and Umbar for peace and prosperity, and to increase a circularity of trade among our peoples, so that we may enjoy greater riches and diversity of exchange. And with that, I present the wine to the vizier, because I presume the vizier needs to intermediate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you present the wine, and in fact, the vizier is up on the steps, but one of the guards will come and take it, and we'll step up halfway up the stairs. The vizier will come down and will take it, look at it, and we'll make her way back up the stairs. Um, there's not for a moment. There's no response from either the vizier or the king. Um, the wine is like she shows it to the king. He kind of you see him cock his head a little bit towards it, and then he turns his head back to look at you, and the wine disappears underneath her robes. At that point, um, go ahead, and I think that there's a little bit of everything going on here, as far as your presentation goes, um, from the very beginning. But I think all in all, you're not overly trying to be intimidating. You're also not trying to be deceptive. So, Ulysses, why don't you start us off here with giving us a persuasion roll, as you meet and introduce yourself to this king.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Oh yes.
23 is great. 23 is excellent. So, with that, that feels real good to you.
Hey, Zach.
Mhm.
In other, I don't know if this is officially a council scene, but in prior council scenes, we've kind of specced out what our goals are.
Uh-huh.
And I think that if I could, from Salmarian's perspective, what she's really looking for is she wants to craft a treaty that is signed by Gondor, Harad, and Umbar for this peace and prosperity. And so her goal in this is to get some type of written sign-off from the ministry here, whatever the power that be, the bureaucracy, the king himself, the vizier, signifying, yes, we are eager to entreat on this idea and bring that with us to Umbar to say that we have visited the king who sits upon the golden throne, and Harad is on board with peace and prosperity. That's kind of what my attempt to take away is.
Perfect. And I think Brian, Zachariah has already communicated some of his own thoughts about objectives here, and I think Grithael is just evaluating how we get everybody out of this alive, which is its own sort of an objective for a council.
Elijah is gritting his teeth and tapping his feet and thinking about the fact that she has now said, has now already diplomatically acknowledged the sovereignty of the Golden Throne, which is something that Zechariah was absolutely fine with doing as part of negotiations. And the fact that you led with, "Hey, you're the one that sits on the Golden Throne. You're the king. You're the great ruler," means that he's just going, well, there's less to deal with. There's less to negotiate with later.
See,
whether you needed to say that at the
beginning
beginning to be taken seriously.
So we would have had this conversation on the road, and
I'm sure.
So Marion would have told you that she feels there are two critical things in treating with this king. One is to represent our strength as warriors and representatives of Gondor, which, from a weapon perspective and a martial perspective, Crithiel and Silmarion connote. And the second being an adequate respect for the sovereignty of this kingdom, which is beyond the pale of anything we may have claimed at any time in our lifetimes or recent generations.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Zachariah would have been happy to hear that he's not the only one going against the idea of don't give up any historical lands. But that's definitely a fine with him giving up lands, but he's just going, oh gosh, you don't show your cards that quick. You don't. Oh no, come on. We could have. There's so many superlatives you could have said that weren't the word king. So yeah, that's just what is going through his head as you're negotiating and as you're speaking there. He's also, of course, ready to jump in if he needs to, because that's how he works. But he's not yet.
So the vizier, as she stays up there and surveys you along with the king, she will say, she'll call down to you and she will say, well then, speak. What is the word from the steward? What do they wish to convey?
We wish to convey an eagerness, a willingness to strike a formal agreement with you and Umbar to establish greater trade routes among our people and a greater flow of goods and services across borders. At this present state, a mere trickle of exchange occurs. But there is much greater wealth to be generated for all parties involved, and a greater strengthening of ties and sibling camaraderie to be achieved among Gondor, Arad, and Umbar. And that peace, that prosperity would be a step forward for us all.
She says, an alliance. And then you see the Golden King kind of cock his head, and you see him kind of like lean forward on the throne. He says,
He speaks?
he does speak. And he says, has then Gondor named themselves a king?
I'll if Samarian doesn't hop in within about 5 seconds of the question, Zachariah will jump to his feet. Does Samarian answer?
Well, Samarin would answer, but I'm not going to hold you back from giving it.
Zachariah will hop in and say, does it matter the title? Must one have a king to have any power? He's going to look at the vizier and say, are you hapless because you are not king? The stewards have ruled for years and have ruled well. And someday we may have a king.
He kind of sits back.
That's a different answer than Silmarion would have given.
She kind of sits back. She sits back in her. He sits back in his throne, and she says, "Still a steward then." She says, "An alliance with Umbar and with Gondor. And she turns to her king, and he looks up at her, and she says, "We already have an alliance with Umbar. So, as I take it, Gondor is asking if they can join something that already exists. You do not create something new. You simply beg to be included in something that already has has predated you."
In fairness, I would offer a different version, Vizier, and your kingship. I would suggest that Gondor is an additional party that brings great value to both you and Umbar, in that we are the link with trade to all the north, whether that north includes the lands of the elves, the lands of the dwarves, the lands of the hobbits, or the lands beyond what you reach now in commerce between the two of you.
The
And as far as my king goes, I would say that our bloodline runs deep, not just back to Numenor, but to when our people roamed this land in ages past. And it's that bloodline that makes us fundamentally kin with you, and why we don't seek an alliance of military dimension. We seek trade. We seek an economic partnership. And with that, we feel we bring great value, and we respect that you bring great value.
You seem to have piqued some amount of interest with the king in this way, and the visor starts to speak, and you see him kind of like look up at her, just kind of cocking his head. Everything that the king does is minute movement, but he kind of looks up at her, and she holds her tongue, and he turns back to you, and he says, "We know very little of the lands to the far north. These dwarves and elves that you speak of are mere stories here." Um, he says, "What can you tell me of the lands to the north and these other people, these opportunities for trade? What of these people? What are they like? To whom do they bend the knee? And what is their strength and their prowess?"
Zachariah, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. He says, "What do you what do you know of these?" And I say, "Oh, so you acknowledge our connections, our knowledge, our variety of partners, and we'd be happy to share that information." And do any of you have? I don't know that you probably would, but do any of you have anything on you? You know, whether it's armor or anything dwarvish or elven make that you could show to show their craftsmanship, or would you probably all be wearing men's clothes? I mean, then women's
Second, to
clothes.
them or to us?
From you to you.
Oh,
As in, can I reach out and say, "Look at this"?
yes.
sword."
Well, I mean, you can my elven spear, which is
Yeah. Yeah, and they don't need to know whether that's archaic or made last Thursday.
Correct.
But yeah, I could take that and toss it to them and explain and say, "Look at the craftsmanship. Look at the metalworking. Look at what these craftspeople can do. Imagine someone who lived a dozen lives of men and became a master of their craft halfway through that lifetime. Imagine the things that they could make that you, with your wealth, could buy if only you had access through Gondor. Imagine the things that you have that that they would, your gold, that they could work if you only had connections.
The
They're amazing folks.
And question of clarification: at this time in Middle Earth, is Smog in Erebor, or is Erebor still productive dwarven city?
Okay.
it would be technically Smog is still in the Erebor, but there's plenty of other dwarven cities with plenty
Yeah.
of wealth. The Crithael, do you have anything before I follow that up? Do you have anything of Elven or Dwarven make on you?
No, my blade is Numenorian, I
Yeah,
believe.
that's right. Yeah.
So, no, I don't think I would have anything elvish. Um, I would perhaps venture a tale of the elven way of stewarding nature, because I think like the family does have, some connection to the elves way back when,
Mm-hmm.
and I think some of the planting and cultivation techniques would have taken from the elves, and I would explain that that their connection with nature, and the way that they have been able to teach us to tend to trees and things like that has allowed us to have these bountiful orchards and have these things, and like these are just some of the things that we can learn from the elven culture.
I love it. So as you, Crithael, are speaking to this, the Golden King actually stands up from his throne. He comes down the stairway. The vizier stays up top. And as you're speaking of these tales of cultivation and growth, and tending to living things, the Golden King comes and he walks up to Silmarion, and with a light touch, not like trying to take it from you or anything, but just kind of like puts his hand to the spear, right? And you can kind of see he is evaluating it as he is listening to you speak of the elves, Crithael. Um, and you can tell that there's some fascination here. And when you conclude your tale, and as Zacharias finishes his communication before you, uh, he remains like affixed on the spear, and he asks in a soft voice, a lower voice. He says, almost distracted, it comes out, even though you can't see his eyes well, or certainly his facial features. He says, these elves, who is their king? Did they bend the knee to the steward?
The elves, there are 3 elven kingdoms in the north. There is one in the Grey Havens, one in the city of Rivendell, and one in Lorien.
And do they offer fealty to Gondor then?
Alliance with Gondor, not fealty.
He nods, still seems distracted, and he says, he kind of, he says, he kind of looks to you, Silmarion, and he says, it is of fine craftsmanship. Excellent. Most excellent in design. And then he will turn and walk back up um, to his throne and sit back down. He will say, if these elves of Rivendell or the Havens were here, we might then more fully. He says, will they come, these elves?
If we establish a treaty of economic exchange among the three human powers, then yes, the elves will come south.
Or better yet, they may extend an invitation for you and your people to come north and see their lands and their ways of doing things. There's much to learn. Again, they live many lives of men, and their history alone would take years to learn, and their craftsmanship decades.
The vizier will speak up, and she'll say, "The king will ride north in due time." And he will again look up at her. Not, you can see maybe he's not thrilled with every time she speaks, but he's also not. He's not. He's not talking ill to her. He kind of looks back up at her, then looks back and he says, "What terms does the steward offer?" You say economic prosperity. A trade route. Is it trade and trade only? Is an alliance of trade and goodwill only, and no exchange of militant forces or strongholds or land or deeper information?
What we would offer is an opening up and a fuller flow of commerce along the roads that come south from Peligir through Harmondin to Abercon, an opening up of coastal trade to Umbar, and an establishment of route between Umbar and Abercon, so that there is a flow of merchants, a flow of goods. And if those roads need protection, a mutually agreed upon system of security for the roads.
This is where we're going to start rolling some checks for the interaction. Ulysses, could you give me a persuasion check? I'm going to be thinking about what we're going to call upon the other two of you here in a moment. Remember, this is a very difficult check for a lot of reasons here.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And we already used our extra thing there. We already used our
Fellowship
advantage from our one of our patrons.
No, we still have a fellowship point. We still have a fellowship. We have fellowship points, right?
But one of the patrons gave us the ability to re-roll a charisma check, I believe, or was that
a re-roll? Was it a re-roll or was it an advantage?
I think it may have been a re-roll. I had a crap. What was it? I had the ability to do that as one of my things, and then we also had that as I had either I think I had a re-roll or advantage on.
So
charisma check, and then we had it also from one of our patrons.
Yes, Ecthelion II says, with the White City's blessing, you can spend a fellowship point to roll an additional d20 after a charisma roll has been made, but before the outcome is determined, and choose which of the d20s is used.
Gotcha.
Okay. So I'm going to roll this charisma roll, and before you respond to it, Zach, I may use a fellowship point to re-roll.
Great.
Or roll a second time. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So here is the roll. Okay. I'm going to use the fellowship point to reroll.
Okay.
And I'll take the 23.
Okay. I will not tell you whether you have succeeded or failed until the end here, but as you kind of communicate your plea to or your terms to the Golden King, um,
I feel emboldened by the way that he stepped off his throne, came down, and checked out the spear.
yeah, absolutely.
And a
I feel
23 is better
emboldened
than
by the
16.
fact that he's dumb enough to not know elves exist. As a person who knows all sorts of history of elves and just has studied all sorts of things in school and like knows about elves, I'm just like, yeah, there's elves and they make things, and it's not just like Christmas shoes. Like seriously, you didn't know about elves? Like,
So
what kind of idiots are these people? Like, what kind of country bumpkins can we take advantage of them?
yeah,
Like, so I'm a bit emboldened by the fact that they're idiots and don't know who elves are.
that's awesome.
But yeah.
So he's going to, at this point, he's going to kind of sussing out that the two of you are the diplomats. You see him kind of turn his gaze, and he extends out a hand to Cthale, and he says, um, he says, Warden of Gondor, please ascend my throne.
Crithael will sort of give a quick look to her companions as if to say, am I doing this? Just like looking for any kind of like negative reaction, sort of very quickly. Kind of like if somebody's saying.
None from me. I'm actually curious to see how this unfolds.
I move forward.
Okay, you would ascend. The stairway's pretty significant, but you reach up to the platform where the visor is standing and the throne, and as you're up there, the words that the Golden King speaks are not quiet enough to where the people down below can't hear them, but it is at a lower tone to where it is understood that this is a conversation that he is directing to her, to Cthale, and not to the rest of the group. And you can see that he's gazing at you, Cthale, and his eyes, his face does not deviate as he looks into you, and he says, if my scouts and spies are to be believed, your cities are all but empty, but everyone that remains of your people is stalwart, bred for war, resolute. Do I speak true? Do my scouts speak true?
I cannot fairly speak to the population of the cities. That is a matter for historians or diplomats, and I, as you so astutely have perceived them, but a humble warden. But I can speak to the character of the man of Gondor, and that we hold our own, and that men of Gondor, wherever they tread, command respect, if only for their prowess and for their loyalty to their country, if
Command,
not for allegiance.
he says, command respect. He says, where do your eyes turn to often? From where do you sense danger? There in your white city. Do you feel beset at all sides? Or do you fear the east only?
Could I make an insight check in that Crethael is concerned in she knows that she's kind of out of her league in terms of like political maneuvering and fancy speech and stuff like that. So she's concerned about not saying too much.
Yep.
So, and she's also concerned in that if she speaks of shadow, she does not want to speak of it in a way. If these people have perhaps allied themselves with the shadow, she does not want to.
Yep.
Yeah, essentially, say, "Hey, the shadow are bad," when like that's who she's speaking with.
Sure.
So she'd like to sort of make some kind of insight check to see just like how she treads carefully.
Absolutely. Give me an insight check.
All right. $15.
Would you like to re-roll that? You have 2 re-rolls based on Ulysses' fine introduction of you all. Up to you.
I think that 15 insight for Crethael is probably she'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So there is you do feel like you have been singled out because the other 2 seem very capable with their words and presentation, and he's interested in engaging with a simpler, not a simpler, but
You're calling me simple.
That's right, a more direct chat at the moment, at least with these few questions.
Okay.
And you do also think, I'll say that you do the concern about giving away too much is definitely in your mind. You don't know what allegiance is and what knowledge and what communiques this person has with the wider world, and what bargains have already been struck.
I say, okay, so I will go back to, I say, I will be honest in that I am a somewhat new to missions of such distance and wide reach, and that in my own domain and that of my family, we have seen on the shadows of on the borders of our lands, we have seen the shadows encroach, and we have seen darker things that we watch for. I do not know, and I certainly do not think that those in the cities, in the great cities of Gondor, live in fear of these things, but those of us on the borders are certainly aware of them.
He says, tell me, does your mother and your father, the elders of your kin, Do they speak in memory of gilded halls and strong banners and proud men and prouder horses of days gone by? Do they look longingly into the past? And do they look fearful into the future?
I can speak only for my own family, but we look with equal fondness and learning onto our past and what had come before, as we do look fondly to our future and the great things that are ahead of us. We do not see that the glory of Gondor is something that is behind us, certainly.
He says, and you don't think that this is necessarily directed at you as a question, but he says, he kind of sits back, he says, but you have no king. And then, as if determining that it is a question, he looks back at you and he says, does that bother you, Lady of Gondor? That you have no king? That you have instead a caretaker servant that sits on a lowly throne, and the white throne remains empty? In your most desperate hour looms at hand. The time of your reckoning looms on the horizon, and you have no king. Does that worry you, Lady Warden?
I am here at the behest of the steward of Gondor, and the steward whose role is to serve Gondor. And so long as those on whose behalf I attend such matters has it as their charge to guide Gondor and to serve Gondor, I have no worries about such things.
He changes tactics abruptly with you, and he says, you've only just arrived. But what do you think of my city?
It seems a rich city, but no, not but. And I would wish to learn more of it. I would be curious that when we met your charge, and I will look to the vizier, they did not name themselves. And I found this curious in terms of custom, for in Gondor, all who serve Gondor carry pride in their names.
Yes, your counselors, your stewards, are given a throne to sit on. That is how they do it over there. He says, no, not so here. You will see two things here, Lady Warden. You will see that my people understand my vision and the vision of us all. And each member of this empire is driven to fulfill their part of a greater destiny for the Sunlands. he turns to his visor and he says, if she willed it, she might have given you her name. It's of no consequence, but she recognizes that her part in the vision, her part in the empire, is what's important, and that is how she wishes to express herself to outsiders such as yourself. The second thing that you might notice, the longer you stay here, and perhaps you have noticed it already, is that unlike your own cities, this golden city is without enemy. That is perhaps a strange thought to you in the north there, who seem always to have sword in hand and blood on their face. But here in Harad, there are no enemies. There is only those who serve Harad, those who have allied with Harad, or those who have been pushed to the edge and are soon to be conquered.
I would like. Oh, I don't know. I don't know how this would work in
Sure.
this context, but I would like to use my Rumor of the Earth feature.
Okay.
Lets me use my action to focus my awareness on the region, and I sense the presence of any of my favorite foes, which are evil men, within a number of miles equal to your wisdom modifier, which is 4 for me.
Mm-hmm.
So within 4 miles, which I think is within the city and probably slightly beyond, potentially.
Sure. Yep.
And with the intent of, he says there's no enemies, but do I feel the presence of the servants of shadow?
Yeah, so when you hear this statement from him, you kind of like take that in, and you get like, it's not like a magical thing, of course, but it's like this wider understanding in a world like this where the shadow is a real permeable thing that is abnormal and not part of the internal core of Iluvatar's design. Like, you can parse at times, certain individuals can parse when that wrongness is here. And you definitely get a sense, like not unlike the serpent that is on their banners, you get a sense that something is coiled around this city. Shadow is constricting Arakan.
And so getting this feeling that, so he says that there is no enemies here, or that he has no enemies.
He has no enemies, yeah. Harad
And
has no enemies, yeah.
and my feeling the presence of of shadow here,
Mm-hmm.
I would sort of make a show of turning as if to look around.
Mm-hmm.
But what really I think I would be doing is looking to Salmarian and kind of give Salmarian a look when, and then as I turn around, as if like listen to what I'm about to say, and I would say, it must be great indeed to not consider, not have to consider the presence of the enemy within your walls. It must be a boon to you that you feel so safe.
Give me a performance check with that. I like that a lot. Give me a performance check, which I'm sure is Cthail's like bread and butter.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's gonna be great.
You can always roll in that 20. You can always roll in that 20.
Performance. Can I talk you into advantage?
You get a reroll on this.
Okay.
But no advantage. Like you can have a reroll if you need it, but
We have 2 rerolls. Which means
I will take a reroll.
Okay. That's a 5 for those watching at home.
Yeah. Rolling with my -1. It's it'll be great.
Oh. Okay.
I've rolled to a 6. Excellent. I will take the 6.
You take the 6. Awesome. So, the king again pauses, lets your words linger for a moment, and then he says with a certainty in his voice, there will be no understanding between Gondor and the Golden City this day. There will be no treaty. There will be no alliance. And then he says, you will remain here for the moment as my guests while I ponder your words and see what truth I might pluck from them. But you will not have your answer today. And then you see him kind of, he had extended his hand for you to come up. You see his hand kind of palm down, kind of extend outward, like dismissing you. Cthail.
So Cthail will absolutely be dismissed, but it'll be like 1 second too late. She'll like linger a second too long. It's like, oh, that's what he means. Okay.
As you're descending down, he'll kind of call down past you towards Zachariah and Silmarion, and he will say, a final thought, a final quandary. He says, what do the people of your land look for? When will they know that their king has come?
So here's something that I was thinking about the other day, and I didn't bring it up because it wasn't quite it wasn't quite relevant. My character is, their main characteristic is that they know the deep lore. They are good at investigation. Like my top skills are investigation and lore. And we had a meeting with this fellow. I can't remember what his name was, but he's going to be taking some ships around. Brian can't remember what name he called himself, but he's going to be taking some ships and an army around sometime soon. Would I know or be able to roll for understanding who he is?
I
mean, high DC sort of thing.
Yeah, you can roll like an old lore check. Yeah, I think so. Just to see if you can kind of parse together a suspicion, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, old lore. I got plus one to plus a little more to investigate. But yeah, old lore is my highest actual one. I'll give it a roll here. Nah. Okay.
And to
Just
be fair, Brian, for you, like this guy
still a
Thorongil
youngin.
comes out of the he's a youngin and he comes out of the north, which there's a potential like there are people of the right bloodline up there, right? But by and large, Gondor has a hard time accepting the Dunedain as nobility, certainly. So it would be, if he kind of, if Thorongil or somebody like that kind of came to you and gave you his lineage, that would be of interest to you. But without a lineage for you to pull from, you just see him as a ranger in the north, probably, to some extent.
I,
Gotcha.
and Samarian has an answer for this question. When the Golden King asks of this, and you know, two distinctive features I have are patient and worry, and you know, I, I'm trying to think about which one buys more. Right? Patience is this is a theme that the king has gone back to again and again in our council, and worry is being aware of the dangers of life. But I'm going to say I want to use patience here, in which I very politely say, King who sits upon the golden throne. It is seemingly a great curiosity to you that Gondor does not currently have a monarch sitting upon a throne. But when I began my entreaty with you, I didn't say I came here on behalf of a steward. I said I came on behalf of a king. The king of Gondor is an institution. The blood of kings flows through my people's veins. There is an aristocracy within Gondor. There is a bloodline of Numenorian descent that expands far beyond our borders. And we believe quite fervently, deep within our very core of being, that there will be a return of the king. And that in our hour of any given need, a monarch will come to bear. But bear this in mind, great king on the golden throne. That nobility of blood is before you right now. And we believe in our people's strength. We believe in our readiness. We believe in our wherewithal. And we come to you once again as a sibling nature of humans, a sibling nation of humans to strike agreement. You advise us, you invite us to stay while you ponder, and we welcome that invitation. But know that when you query about our king, the king and everything about the king is what animates our people.
He says, we'll talk again. We'll talk again come sunrise. And I'll speak no more questions of your imbalance of stumbling stewards and hope for kings. We'll talk about other things, perhaps, about what lies ahead for you and your people, and what lies ahead for me and mine. And perhaps we'll reach some sort of an understanding, if not an agreement. And with that, He will stand up from his throne and will like walk back behind it. Um, all of his guards kind of coming to attention as he rises. He kind of walks behind it and disappears. Um, the visor will come descend back down the steps, um, and we will kind of close this scene with you all being taken back out of the throne room um, for the evening. um, I think that we are at 10:35. I think that this is a good time to call this session and to let you guys kind of ruminate on how you want to ponder your second stab at the Golden King. Um, I think you guys did a very good job kind of trying to sort through this. Um, my as Zach and then as the Golden King for a moment, I will say that like um, this is like you choosing to go to Abercon is the most arguably the most difficult of the challenges that you could go to, because Umbar has expressed an interest in a willingness to treat with you, and you come to Abrakan cold, and so there's it's a high difficulty, high stakes engagement, and I think it's very interesting that you chose to come here, and I'm interested to see where next session leads. So very cool.
I mean, it's on the way. I mean, you may as well.
Not at all on the way. Not at all. It's several days out of the way, but you know what? Not so far out of the way that it is unreasonable.
They will never find our bodies.
Yeah.
I just will say it. You say it's the most difficult thing we could have chosen to do, but you know we've yet to get to the ruins.
That's true. Like you could keep going, and yeah, this most difficult.
I'm for Gondor.
Yeah. No, you guys are cool. I will say that here's an interesting thing. I put down some notes, and I want to commend. So just a little peek behind the curtain for folks. So I put down some notes about on my end about what the Golden King wants, and also like things that will be seen as like a positive in your favor, right? Like things that you can do that will help you, right? And one of the top things on the list is a presentation of a costly gift. Um, this is a city of resplendency, and it's a city where the king, everyone that comes to this throne room offers something, right? There's a transaction that takes place here, and fortunately for you guys, even though some of your rolls were great and some of them were not so great, what tipped the scales, genuinely, what tipped the scales for you to getting a second bite at the apple, so to speak, another day of it, is starting off in the right way by offering the wine was kind of the stroke, and then also the second thing on that bullet point list um, is information given freely. And while there was some reservation and some corners, you guys basically were willing to say, "Hey, here's who we are. Here's what's up." And in different times, all three of you um, were forthcoming with something that the king didn't know about, right? Whether it was the elves, whether it was the people of Gondor and their stalwartness, whether it was information about their king, like all of you gave something, and that kind of also helped kind of tip it. So, um,
Zach Francis will be forthcoming
yeah,
because the other three are already here.
that's right. That's right. Yes, yes. So I think this was a super good game, and I commend you for um, whittling away a little bit. And I'm curious to see, now that you kind of know what this guy's about a little bit more, what you might come to the table with next time. Speaking of next time, before we end the stream this evening, I want to talk about that. I think we have on the agenda to play next week again if everybody's down
Mhm.
for it. Are we
Yes.
are we down to play next week?
Let me check.
Yes.
Probably. I can't imagine why not. Um, yeah, yeah, nobody's gonna book balloon twisting at that hour of the day. So yeah,
Perfect.
I was
Well,
just making sure that we didn't have some crazy amount of stuff the next. Yeah, but I don't think so. It's a busy week, but not as busy as it would have been during the summer. So
well,
yeah,
in that case, I think what we're going to do is play another session next week, and that will let us get through the meeting with the Golden King, and then we'll take a break for the holiday and come roaring back to see the final chapter or two in January with what comes after meeting with the Golden King of Abercom.
sounds good.
So I'm excited. Appreciate you guys. Yeah.
Well, you did a
Just
great
throwing
job.
out oh,
You did a great
schedule
job
wise.
playing the Golden King.
Yeah.
I really like how you played him.
Cool.
So just schedule wise, obviously I've got one big thing happening in January. So if we rush to the hospital with baby boy, then I will not be there. But can't quite tell. Although it's looking like it'll probably be C-section. It's looking at like it'll probably be earlier rather than later. She
Yeah.
is at 32 weeks, and the baby is measuring at 36 weeks.
That's
So
crazy.
it is a big boy. So yeah, it may be sooner rather than later. So I hope so because she's miserable. So
Well,
yeah,
we'll say we'll see you next week, but um, good luck to all of your family with that madness and craziness, Brian. And hopefully, you guys can have a relaxing, or at least a somewhat less stressful holiday after this.
I
Um,
think so.
I'm excited though. Thanks again, fellas. And I'll say real quick here at the end that if you're watching this live, um, we have a whole weekend of streaming coming up on this channel and also on Midwest Game Fest online, and you can check them out at twitch.tv/Midwest Game Fest. We're doing all sorts of interviews, including Andrew Brzezinski is hosting a Star Trek Adventures panel on Sunday morning. So if you want to hear him ask cool, insightful, engaging, enthralling questions to um, a handful of Star Trek adventure designers, that's going to be awesome. And there's a lot of other cool panels, including um, an astoundingly um, uh, slotted 5e D&D panel coming tomorrow afternoon, I believe at 1 o'clock Central, where we will have a murderer's row of 5e illuminaries like Sean Merwin, Rich Lescaflair, Alphinius Goo, and many others. And we would love to have you on that one or any of the others. You can find them on MidwestGameFest.com or just by hanging out in our Discord because we're going to be talking about all of them there. And all of the panels that we do as part of that convention will be streamed on our Twitch as well. Chat, thanks for hanging out. Craig, appreciate you hanging out and giving us so many fantastic. I've been enjoying your running commentary as we met the Golden King. So we'll see y'all next week.